Onside. Hope you've had a fantastic weekend and an excellent bank holiday. We're recording, it's about 4:30 that we're recording. So hopefully when this drops, your Monday will be evening. So hopefully you've had a great Monday as well. So as always, I'm joined by my main man, Ois. How are you, Ois?
I'm very well, thank you, Ayub. Ready for the start of the week. Big weekend. Just wondering how long it's going to take you before you mentioned that you predicted Liverpool to win the Premier League title. But anyway, let's get cracking.
You've stolen my thunder. I was going to mention that. But it's
sure
interesting because I actually, on our Friday show, I actually almost downplayed the weekend. I sort of said that it wasn't going to be, it's not a great weekend in terms of the fixtures. It was all quite predictable in terms of the games. So Arsenal, Fulham, Man United, Forest, I sort of predicted Man United win. Sheffield United, Man City, I predicted a Man City win. So in a sense, the results went according to plan. But it was a fantastic weekend in terms of excitement, drama, and the biggest drama was yesterday with the Newcastle Liverpool game. We predicted it. We said it was a mouth-watering game. My goodness me, it offered plenty of drama, a little bit of controversy, which I'm sure we'll discuss. So I'll give it to you, Lois. Sort of talk about the game, and then maybe what we can do is pick on some of the key incidents. Okay, so in terms of the game, what did you think of the game?
Well, I think both of us, Ayub, in the last episode, we both suggested Liverpool would win. I don't think either of us suggested it was going to be in quite the fashion that it transpired, and obviously going down to 10 men after 25 odd minutes being a goal down, you would think that game would peter out, or Newcastle would go on to win fairly convincingly. I think Gary Neville suggested that it could have gone messy, were his words. It was the game that we all hoped for in terms of the excitement. And without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion, it was the result of the season so far. Just in terms of everything that we love about sport, the stories heading into the game, you've got this kind of, I would argue it's a slight rivalry that seems to be building. If you follow some of the narratives between Liverpool and Newcastle, yes, Liverpool have been immensely successful under Jurgen Klopp, but there's been a few, let's say, verbal spats, if I can say, although a great deal of respect between the coaches, but there's been a little bit between the clubs. Jurgen Klopp has commented about Newcastle's unlimited wealth in previous times and how they have to live within their means. He was asked about the new rules regarding only one coach at a time being allowed in the dugout, and he suggested that only Newcastle were going to be the ones that were affected because of Jason Tyndall's desire to be front and center, let's say, often standing next to Eddie Howe. So there's a little bit of an undertone of a rivalry that was building. I think Eddie Howe hasn't beaten Liverpool in his time as manager, so there was that, and this felt like Newcastle's best opportunity. And Gary Neville, I thought, articulated himself very well when he said, was this the game that was going to present some sort of crossroads for both clubs, where one was going in another direction? I know you have Liverpool achieving big things this season, Ayub. So just in terms of the game itself, it lived up to the billing. What do you want? You want goals, you want moments, you want controversy. I mean, when I say you want controversy, just from a neutral perspective. So there was a lot to it. I thought Newcastle, on the whole, played very well. 11 against 11, they were much the dominant party, forced a lot of situations early on. We'll get into the controversial incidents, I think, separately. But I think going a goal up after the Trent Alexander-Arnold mistake, really well taken by a player that Ayub both spoken about, in that it was a big season for him. He had a great Euros with England in the 21s, but a lovely goal by Gordon. He really had his way, to be fair, with Trent Alexander-Arnold for the majority of the game. Second half, he kept running at him and getting all sorts of joy before he was taken off for Harvey Barnes. So a goal that was well-deserved, you would say. I mean, it came from a mistake, but well-deserved. The intensity within the stadium was quite rampant at that point because of some of the controversial moments up and all centering around Trent Alexander-Arnold up to that point. And then came obviously the red card incident with Virgil van Dijk. I thought it was, in my opinion, incredibly harsh, in my opinion, but we'll get into the nuances of that shortly. But at that point, you're thinking, well, this is it, and Newcastle did pour it on. One of the best saves I've ever seen, the Alisson save, genuinely, given where Almiron took it in terms of he was moving forward, so the momentum was with him. Great chest volley through bodies. How he's managed to get a strong hand to that. I think it hit the bar after he saved it, and then to just kind of claw it away. But an incredible save from that close-in volley through a sea of bodies. It's one of the reasons why many see him as the best goalkeeper in the world. But an incredible save and kept Liverpool in it. And although Newcastle had lots of moments even after that, where you think the goal's coming, Almiron on second half blazes over, goes on that mazy run where he hits the post. You felt Liverpool showed a few moments in the second half where you felt like there were going to be some opportunities. I thought Jurgen Klopp used his substitutions incredibly well. And yeah, I just think the more the game stood, I think we all feel Liverpool are going to score plenty of goals this season. That front 5-6 have got play and plus options off the bench. So there's definitely goals, pace, explosiveness, and again a player that I'll leave you to kind of wax lyrical, because I know he was one of your kind of players to watch out for this season. Darwin Núñez has his moment, and I'm so pleased for him in some ways. It's been a difficult start to his Liverpool tenure. You'll remember famously, I think it was Palace against whom he got sent off at, and he had a difficult first season. This season also always felt a big one for him. We all kind of felt he'd take some steps forward, and this was probably, obviously, without a shadow of a doubt, his biggest moments in a Liverpool shirt. Incredible finish for the first one. Before I just hand it over to you for the second goal, I just want to go through the second goal briefly, if I may, and then I'll let you have your thoughts. I think the first goal is come shortly after, obviously, he's missed that opportunity where the ball's been played over the top by Harvey Elliott, who also had a good impact, I thought, coming off the bench. And you think like, oh, has he missed his opportunity, or how many more Liverpool are going to get? And then that lovely move that Liverpool put together, that's the quality they have. When you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold on the pitch, Jota again had a massive impact. So Arnold into Salah, first time into Jota, he's played it. Botman's got himself in a little bit of a difficult position, but once Núñez takes that touch, it reminded me of some of the finishes you'd see from a Rooney or a Drogba. He's leaning forward, but head over the ball. Perfect finish in off the post. Shea Given had no concerns about Pope's positioning, neither did I. I thought it was an incredible finish from that point. But when you're attacking teams vertically and you're taking chances like Liverpool were in terms of trying to create opportunities, you're going to get a little bit of luck, which is what they did with Botman. And just for the second goal, Ayub, if I may, and I'll hand you the floor, I thought there were certain things to admire from Liverpool in that second goal, and the main centers around Salah's contribution for that goal. And if you watch it, Newcastle by this time, the crowd's gone eerily quiet. There's a little nervousness in the air. I don't know if you felt it, but I genuinely felt Liverpool were going to create one more opportunity. It just felt that way. They felt very confident at the back. Newcastle started running out of options, snatching at things. Wilson headers wide, lashes over the bar. I remember Longstaff in the corner getting run off the pitch. It felt very much as Liverpool were fairly comfortable. And then in the middle of the park, I don't know who the player was for Newcastle. He hesitates a little bit, tries to play the ball, gets cut out into Salah. And there's something that the world-class players do, which is so subtle that it's sometimes it's not noticeable until you watch it a few times. And one of the things that Salah does, I thought, which was incredible, was he takes 3 touches, Ayub, and his first touch is to trap it with his left foot. And he does this second touch with his right foot, which is literally a yard. It's nothing more, nothing less. But with that, he creates so many good things for Liverpool just off that. One, he straightens the angle to bypass Target, who had been just brought onto left back. So he just straightens the angle just for a little bit. When he takes that second touch, it pauses and freezes Burn. If you watch carefully, it just freezes him as though Salah's going to continue with the action. But just by taking that touch, Burn hesitates. Núñez is still curling his run onto his right. So it just creates that fraction of a second perfect gap for Núñez to create a little bit of distance between him and Burn. And Salah clearly wants to give Núñez the perfect ball where he doesn't have to take any touches whatsoever. It's a low backlift punt with his left foot just through. Very similar to some extent, although it was a greater backlift for the Diaz goal against Chelsea. But that second touch just does so much. It straightens the angle, gives Burn cause for hesitation, maybe perhaps thinking offside, maybe Salah's going to keep the ball, and a perfect weighted pass, something that we've been used to from a De Bruyne. But Salah, he's starting to show he's got that in his locker. I'm not saying he hasn't, but that kind of weight of pass. So I think that was an incredible moment from a world-class player, and he's put it on. And I'll be honest with you, but I don't know what you were like when you were watching it, but I thought 100% he was going to score at that point, and he's put it perfectly, bang, side netting, just like the deadly goal scorers do at the highest level. So unbelievable victory, incredible scenes. You saw the Liverpool fans at the top. top of the stadium, top of one of the stands behind the goal. I mean, this was, Jurgen Klopp called it one of his best victories, even greater than the Barcelona one. Maybe a little hyperbole, caught up in the moment, but we'll allow him that. But the emotion, the stories, the euphoria, for me, result of the season, incredible. And that's going to be a tough one for Newcastle to take. If you can't beat Liverpool when you're in the ascendancy, 1-0 up against 10 men, you've got to find a way to win that game.
That's beautifully summarised. Absolutely, there's nothing really that I can add in terms of the game. You're absolutely right, and the comment that you made about Salah, that is absolute. I mean, that's the nuance. That's somebody who's got an eye for understanding football, and you're absolutely right. That's world class. That defines a world-class player, or that separates a world-class player from maybe a very, very good player. It's those key moments, key passes, key touches. Wonderful game of football. The entertainment was superb. The drama was as you expect from two heavyweights of the English Premier League. I was so impressed with Liverpool. Newcastle will be ruining the opportunities that they missed. I suppose. I mean, Alisson, you were absolutely right. That is a world-class save from a world-class keeper. I rate him as the best keeper in the world. Yesterday, I think he proved that he is the best keeper in the world. Unbelievable save. If Newcastle go 2 up, you don't know. You almost sort of think that that's perhaps going to be difficult for Liverpool to come back with 10 men. But the character that they showed. I mean, I called Liverpool as the champions. Yesterday, I think I'm convinced they will be champions. That's 2 games on the spin that they've played with 10 men. And people sort of say it's difficult to play against 10 men. It may be difficult to play against, but I think it's only difficult because it's quite a rearguard action. So in a sense, it's difficult to break down. I won't sort of say it's difficult to play against 10 men. You're always in the ascendancy. Maybe it's just a little bit difficult more to break down. But certainly for me, the effort, the commitment, the desire. I mean, that scream from Trent Alexander-Arnold at about 95 minutes when he probably thought, yes, we've done enough now. The celebrations after the game, that was a team. I'm sure the journey back must have been full of exuberance, joy, satisfaction, and probably some sort of feeling that maybe this is our year, because these are very, very difficult games against a very, very good Newcastle side. I think Newcastle at the start, they had strength, energy. They were all over the place. I mean, Joe Linton, exceptional player. I mean, I think he's got better and better and better. I think we'll talk about maybe he should have had cards as well because he was doing fouls everywhere, but he got away with it. So in terms of a game, wonderful advert for the English Premier League. 2 great teams. We called it. We sort of said that it was going to be a tight affair. I think. I think you called it as well that Liverpool perhaps would edge it. I certainly said Liverpool would edge it as well. So we were right in that respect. But my goodness me, what a game! What drama! Plenty of controversy. Talking about controversy, let's talk about the controversy. You sort of said that you weren't sure whether that was a sending off. Why? Because initially that's what I thought as well, but the more that I looked at it, the more that I think, yeah, maybe. So I'm intrigued to find out what your thoughts are.
Well, let me rephrase. You suggested I was unsure if it was a sending off. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. And let me count the ways. I mean, look, we'll probably cover the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation shortly as well, because that was a big talking point. Yeah. But you're right. Let's jump to the sending off, because that in a way shaped the game to some extent. I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold's the yellow card and non-yellow card were very early in the game. But the red card obviously set the tone in terms of Liverpool having to engage in this kind of rearguard action. You're going to have to bear with me a little bit here. I mean, first and foremost, you've got Gordon, who again skips inside Alexander-Arnold, who by this time has got a yellow card, avoided a second yellow card. So Trent Alexander-Arnold is simply just kind of shadowing him around, making sure he's not engaging in any way with any tackle. So Gordon skips inside, who had a really good game, Anthony Gordon, and he plays the ball to the side of Alexander Isak. So it's on Isak's left side, let's say, and for a moment, Van Dijk suggests, it seems to me that he's thinking about potentially trying to play him offside, but Gordon releases the ball fairly early for that to occur. And when the ball's played into Isaac, I always start with the premise, Ayub, that if you're going to hand out a red card, it's a game-defining decision. You don't want to be dishing out red cards willy-nilly. I saw some of the statistics earlier, or even last week, that we were on course for 107 red cards. Well, I think there were 3 more this weekend, so we're on course for like 114 or something or the other. And I think last year we had 30 or something. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check that. Now, so I believe if it's a game-defining decision, it's one that you have to get right. Now, I've heard Jim White talk on TalkSport about last man, and we often throw these cliches out: last man, no other choice, he's gone through him. All these cliches that we throw around. But let's really analyze the incident. So the ball's played through on the left-hand side. Isaac at no stage whatsoever touches the ball. Now, that doesn't mean he's not through on goal. I'm just simply stating out the facts. He does not touch the ball at any stage during that incident. Secondly, now that doesn't mean that he's not through on goal. Like I said, we've got another incident this weekend with Fernandez. He also didn't touch the ball, but you'd argue he was through on goal when Worrell dragged him by the shorts. So I'm not suggesting by any stretch that suggests that he shouldn't be sending off. I'm just stating the facts. So he's not touched the ball whatsoever. And I think what Van Dijk's thought is, my only chance to get this ball is to try and either put my feet in between his or try and maybe actually go behind his feet to intercept the ball. So does that make sense? So Isaac would be running on to go behind his feet, not in front of his feet, to behind his feet, just to see if I can put my foot just behind his calf, Achilles area, and see if I can nick it. But Isaac, like the true class striker that he is, puts his body and puts his legs between the ball and the defender, which means the defender, unfortunately, has had to kick through him. Now, do I think Van Dijk wants to kick through him? I don't think so. I think Isaac's definitely caught him out there. But to suggest that that's a clear goal-scoring opportunity when Isaac A is pretty much half a step maximum ahead of Van Dijk. He's not like a yard ahead or 2 yards ahead. Van Dijk's simply just chaperoning him to a little bit to the side, but then has made the rash decision to try and get the ball. I think what's also played on Van Dijk's mind is it's outside the box. So on the scales of danger, he's probably thinking it's probably worth the risk for me to try and nick the ball. I contend that if that was a yard, 2 yards further in the box, he would have just ran alongside him. So I think he's taken a risk for sure. Is it a foul? 100%. Is it a yellow card? Absolutely. A red card suggesting as if Isaac was in complete control of that situation and he was bearing down on goal. And I think he's shielding the ball, yes. But is that a clear goal-scoring opportunity? Do I want to see a red card where you're literally going to disadvantage a team as if to suggest that was a clear, undeniable goal-scoring opportunity? Absolutely not. I have never seen a red card for those type of incidents. Now, if the guy's through and you make a challenge like that, absolutely. But clearly, Van Dijk thinks I can get the ball here. So there's no... let's say it's not a professional foul. Not that it matters when it's outside the box. But again, just for my liking, I think Van Dijk's trying to nick the ball. Isaac's been smart. He's had to slightly kick through him accidentally. I don't think he means it, but it's a foul accidentally. To give a red card in that situation to disadvantage a team to 10 men for about 65 minutes is beyond me. He's not going to get the red card rescinded. That much we know. And he may well get a game added on or two for the way he left the pitch. But in my view, I've just never seen a red card for incidents like that.
I'm surprised you've taken that stance because I think initially I didn't think it was a penalty, but that was because I thought he got the ball cleanly. It's only watching it afterwards when I've realised that he's obviously clipped Isaac. But I disagree. I completely disagree. I think it was from Van Dijk's point of view. He was poorly positioned. I think he was in a poor position. I think Isaac's done exactly what a quality centre forward would do. He was letting the ball run. It was hit with a reasonable amount of pace. So obviously, he was letting it run. Van Dijk's in a poor position. And he perhaps felt there was no alternative but to try and win the ball. But in going for the ball, he's obviously clipped Isaac. He's tripped. And it was a goal scoring opportunity by the letter of the law. It's a goal scoring opportunity. He was free on goal. So I watching it, there is absolutely no doubt. And there's lots of Liverpool fans as well, when they've watched it in the cold light of day, they've accepted that it was a penalty. It was a penalty. I mean,
you mean a free kick?
Yeah. It was a free kick. Yeah.
I don't think anyone disputes it's a free kick. It's whether or not.
And it was a sending off. It was a goal scoring opportunity. So I think it was a red card. I thought it was harsh, but I think when I looked at it again, you can't. It based on the letter of the law, the decision was right. He clipped him. He was on goal. There was no other defenders near him. Van Dijk, but my criticism was more of Van Dijk. He was in a really poor position.
Ayub, there's one thing where a player can be in a poor position, but we can't then use that as suggestion that he should be punished twice. Yes, we can argue they're separate points. Was it a poor piece of defending? Granted. Was it a foul? 100%. Was it a yellow card? It has to be, because he's pretty much going into the box, right? He's turned him. You say his positioning's poor. Gary Neville, I thought, was quite tough on him on commentary, to be fair. I just, in my humble opinion, I'm just separating all those points. Yes, poor piece of defending. Yes, the position could have been a little better. He could have been a little bit more sharper to get himself level with Isaac. It's as if he allowed Isaac half a yard, like I said, because I think he was thinking that he could step up and play him off, but Gordon's released it at the right time. I don't think he's meant to foul him. He's trying to nick the ball, and I just think
it doesn't really matter, though, does it? It doesn't really matter whether he's trying to foul him or not. He's fouled Isaac, who is bearing down on goal. If he hadn't done what he did, it would have been. I mean, it was beautiful play by Isaac. He got in a really good position. He was obviously allowing the ball to run, so he could then just run onto the ball. You said obviously he didn't touch the ball. Yes, he didn't, but you don't have to touch the ball.
Agreed.
That ball was played at a pace where he was allowing the ball to run. If Van Dijk doesn't do what he did, the ball would have run through. He was on the right side. He was ahead of Van Dijk. It would have been bearing down on goal, and that's a goal scoring opportunity. So by the letter of the law, it's the right decision. As to how you can say it shouldn't be a red card is beyond me.
No, absolutely. I think the only point we disagree on, Ayub, is you're suggesting Isaac's bearing down on goal, and I simply suggest, and it's a nuance point, but although looks like he's bearing down on ball, the opportunity, the situation is so early in its journey, it's unclear whether he's going to, shield Van Dijk and then turn onto his right foot or left foot and then face Alisson, or whether he's going to chaperone it to his left. You might say it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is the situation.
It doesn't matter.
But the situation hasn't fully developed to a point where you can say he's bearing down on goal. I think the ball's played to the side and Van Dijk's tried to nick it. And you said yourself, on first glance, you thought he has got it cleanly. My point I'm just making is, it's a little, if it was another millisecond or a second forward where you say, no, he's definitely rolled him and he's grabbed his arm, or to try and where he's just literally gone past him and he thought, last resort, I'm going to have to grab his arm. Similar to how Arnold thought about it when Gordon was bearing down on goal. He thought about the grab, didn't he? He even partially did grab him. And yes, if Gordon went down there, there was absolute no doubt about it. Probably, never mind a second yellow for Arnold, it probably would have been a straight red because he was bearing down on goal. So, in my opinion, it's just there. Was he bearing down on goal? It slid to the side of him. We're not even quite sure what situation is going to materialize from there. That's the only difference. And I just don't want game-defining decisions like that. It's a slippery slope from that point on.
You're in a minority here, because I've not heard, as I said, even Liverpool fans, once they've allowed the dust to settle and looked at the replay, they've obviously realised that he's been clipped. So if Liverpool fans are saying as well that it was a red card, I'm probably going to side with Liverpool fans, because if they're saying it has to be, surely.
I didn't deny he wasn't clipped, but anyway, let's move on to another big incident as well.
Yeah, that was one incident, but prior to that, obviously there was the incident with Trent Arnold. He got a yellow card for a challenge that really it should have been the other way around, I think. And then there was an incident afterwards where people were saying he should have got a yellow card. So what's your thoughts on that? I've got my own thoughts. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, the first yellow card that he was given for throwing the ball away. What's your thoughts on that? Because it's a game full of emotion. It's a full stadium. And I'm quite annoyed where referees somehow sort of think that players are going to be so controlled. I mean, it's a game played with emotion. There are going to be reactions. Now, should there be a referee who sort of thinks, right, give 5 seconds. If after 5 seconds there's still reactions, then it's different, because too many referees are making instant decisions based on a player reacting following an incident. Now I would love it if a referee was thoughtful enough to think, right, let me give 5 seconds or 10 seconds before I make a decision. It's straight away, it's instant. So what's your thoughts on the first yellow card, or the yellow card that Trent Arnold got?
I'll keep it simple. I thought the referee got both incidents with Trent Alexander-Arnold wrong. It's clear. I mean, it's as clear as day a foul. I mean, I understand that there are going to be times when a player's heading towards the throwing line and he's going to try and fake a foul. Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. So I'm not suggesting that the referee, hasn't understood the situation correctly, but it's clearly a foul. Gordon pushes Trent Alexander-Arnold in the bag. You can see that with the way Trent Alexander falls. He doesn't just fall, Alexander-Arnold falls. He doesn't just fall on the floor. He actually falls towards the dugout area.
Yeah.
So of course you're going to be a little irritated, especially when you turn around and you see that the referee is simply pointing for a throw to Newcastle United. Now, has he thrown the ball away? Of course. I think you articulate the situation well, Ayub. There's a little bit of emotion. Has he thrown it away with, kind of with violence or with aggression? Absolutely not. He's just looked at him with, I guess, a look of kind of, he had this incredulous look on his face, Trent Alexander. They hadn't got a free kick out of it. So to get a yellow card, I think referees are thinking, let's give a yellow card early and hopefully the situation will temper down. And to your point, this is the danger with these new rules. When they're implemented with such severity, it is coming back where it's causing it's causing storylines thereafter. It's a clear push in the back. It's a yellow card on the face of it, maybe. But to your point, I think a better interpretation of that situation would have been to give Trent Alexander-Arnold a bit of have a discussion and say, look, yes, you might think it's a foul. I don't think it's a foul. It's a throw in, and let's just move on. I think the fact that it's a double whammy, not to get the foul and then to get bugged, I think was poor on the referee's part. We'll jump into the second incident, but that's what I thought on the first one anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to comment about the second incident as well, because I think it's the reason why I'm going to do that is the refs are mic'd up. So obviously there's lots of communication, and I absolutely, in my mind, I don't know whether there's been a conversation where somebody he's probably asked, or somebody sort of said, he was pushed, maybe a little bit harsh. I absolutely am convinced that the next decision, which should have been a yellow card, has been influenced by the fact that he's perhaps received information that the first decision that he gave was erroneous. So therefore, it really shouldn't have resulted in a yellow card. So I think he's just maybe, I suppose, making amends for the mistake that he made, because everybody's saying, well, he should have got the second yellow card, get sent up. I'm absolutely convinced that somehow the message being relayed to him, and that's the reason why I think he didn't give that second yellow. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree. I can't speak to the theory that you share. I mean, it may well have been. Absolutely, it may well have been. Referees are communicating all the time, and it may well have come to him. I don't know what the protocol is, whether those are communications that are better had at half time. I'm not so sure. To your point, it would probably make sense to your point if some level of information was drip fed to the referee during the half to say, yeah, you may have missed one. I'm not so sure. I can't speak to that. I don't have knowledge of it. I mean, the second one's a yellow card. Let's be very clear. And for Trent Alexander-Arnold to risk that, I think it was instinctive. Bless him. I think as Gordon's flying past him, he's instinctively just put his arm out as if to kind of usher him out. And obviously Gordon, who doesn't weigh a lot, let's be honest, but has gone flying. And it's a simple yellow. I mean, I don't think you'll find a single Liverpool fan. I disagree with you on the Van Dijk one. I think there are some Liverpool fans who dispute the red card, but you will not find one Liverpool fan that argues that the second one, without a shadow of a doubt, should have been a second yellow card. And for the referee not to give a second yellow does imply perhaps that there is some understanding that he may well have perhaps got the first one wrong, right? There's a kind of a hidden between the lines, maybe interpretation of that whole situation. I mean, it was clear that the crowd was baying for blood. It was early doors. It was the most obvious second booking. Again, the referee's probably thinking, I think Andros Townsend articulated at halftime, the referee's thinking, heck, this is a bit early to be dishing out 2 yellow cards and sending someone off in the game of the season so far. So yeah, I'm with you. Perhaps, there could have been some communication between the officials that may have influenced the referee's decision, but he's got the first one wrong. He's got the second one wrong, in my opinion.
I hope that was the case where there's been some sort of communication, because it's not great to make a mistake, but certainly I think if he's not given a second yellow based on the fact that he knew that he made a mistake in the first one, I'd actually be more impressed with the referee, because ultimately it's about, you don't want to just level things up, but certainly what you want to do is be fair. And I was thinking at the time that must be the reason. There must have been some sort of communication, because it was so obvious that really it nobody would have questioned the referee for whipping out another yellow. But the fact he didn't just makes me think that maybe perhaps he was aware that his first decision wasn't quite right. So cracking game, brilliant, brilliant advert, and I'm more convinced now than I ever was that Liverpool will win the league. So right, that's Liverpool and Newcastle. We have some
the old kiss of death from Ayub Patel for Liverpool's hopes and aspirations this season.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I tend to very rarely get things right. So Liverpool fans, please, I apologise in advance. But we had a cracking weekend. I mean, what the game that I want to talk about now is, I mean, we talked about Manchester United. We talked about maybe there's some sort of disharmony at Manchester United. When they were 2 down, it's very much looked like that there is still a lot of concern at Manchester United. So, what's your thoughts on Manchester United? Eventually, obviously, they won the game. So, what do you make of that?
Yeah, and I think, look, in the end, you've got to give them a great deal of credit, right? If you're going to review the game in isolation, ultimately, when you're 2-0 down after 4 minutes, that is a steep mountain to climb, irrespective of whether you're at home, whether you're you're playing against a team that may well be fighting for to avoid relegation this season. I think you still have to give credit. It takes a lot to kind of fight back, come back, and get 3 goals. I think where a lot of Manchester United fans are is that could have been a disastrous result in a lot of ways. We spoke last week about the need for not just a win, but a performance. Well, they got the win, and I would argue some of the attacking elements are there for sure, but some of the defending was, well, yeah, I mean, real kind of championship level defending to some extent. I mean, you've got the first goal, Awani running the length of the field pretty much from a corner situation. I thought Marcus Rashford, in my opinion, did very well not to foul him, because that would have been a red card and a penalty.
Yeah.
So I think he was very cautious in how he went about trying to nick the ball, but he's put Onana down and put it into the bottom corner. They then get a slightly fortuitous second goal. But again, 2-0 down, 4 minutes, shell shock. The only good thing at that stage is you've got a lot of time left, right? And Old Trafford is one of those places where if you can get momentum, you can get momentum very quickly, as seen in the former years under Alex Ferguson. So, although they didn't find themselves 2-0 down after 4 minutes, probably ever, I imagine, under the great man. So, look, I think give them credit. I thought they did really well. Eriksen, great finish. And we spoke about Marcus Rashford, didn't we? About how playing on the left is an area where he's fully comfortable. He can go left foot, right foot. He can cut in, take a shot. For his finishings, I think his finishing needs a little work, but his shooting ability is up there with the very best. So he loves playing on that left-hand side, creates the goal because it offers him the opportunity to go on the left. He looked dangerous. Great finish by Eriksen with the outside of his foot. And then you're thinking, right, it's coming. Casemiro misses an absolute sitter of a header. Again, work for the 2-2 goal, I thought incredibly well worked. Really well worked. I thought that was superb. Great assist by Bruno Fernandes. Not had the best of seasons. I think you were a little touch critical of him in the last episode about his start to the season, but really unselfish header back with full of quality for Casemiro, who didn't miss from a couple of yards out this time. And then you're thinking, right, it's coming. So they've got the goal. Couple of, again, controversial incidents. I'll let you cover them and then I can maybe chip in. You've got the red card, you've got the penalty situation, but they've got the goal from the penalty and in the end got the victory that they absolutely needed. If they lost that game, I think there would have been massive inquest, and that would have been perhaps even the story that we would have led with today. So I think on the whole, they've got the win, and it's their it's obviously the second win of the season. They don't quite have a performance yet within the 3 games yet against Wolves, Spurs and Forest. Their attacking play, I think, on the whole is good, but the balance of the team looks a little off right now. They are suffering from some injuries, some, I would say, short-term to mid-term with Shaw and Mount, and Malacia out injured as well. But with Højlund obviously up front, still waiting to make his bow. So they've got the win. Do I think Manchester United fans will feel confident or happy? Absolutely not. And obviously, it's a big game next Sunday against Arsenal at the Emirates. So, it's always good to get 3 points. You'd rather try and take some lessons from victories, the same lessons that you would take from defeat. So, but yeah, they probably want to get into some form now and get some solidity, because if you're conceding 2 at home to Forest, it's not a recipe to be able to challenge for big honours.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the main thing that they'll be happy with is the result. Same with Wolves. They didn't play well, but they got a result. They won. Same with this game as well. It's the start which is always a worry. I think when there's some sort of issue with a team, you can always tell by the way that a team starts. And that's the concern for me. I think once there were 2 behind, it's almost, in a sense, it's almost a default setting. I think players just they've got this inbuilt DNA that really they need to do something. But the start of the game, you've obviously got plenty of time to prepare. You've got the manager who's talking to you before you go out, and when you start the game, and it's just not right. It's you 2 goals sort of down in no time at all. I don't know. There's something fundamentally not right at Manchester United at this moment in time. I'm not sure what it is. Whether there's sort of players aren't quite happy. There's something maybe rumbling. Obviously, we talked about Maguire and McTominay. So I don't know. But the good thing, and I think United fans perhaps will take solace in that, is that even though it's not running smoothly, they've still got 2 wins. They've not played well, but they've actually won 2 games of football. So maybe they can probably turn around and say, well, look, if we're actually still winning games, somehow managing to find a way to win games, but not playing really well, it all goes well. I suppose when they start clicking, when things start falling into place. But at the moment, as I said, if I'm a Manchester United fan, I'm concerned about what the issues are. That's the worry. What is it that is? Because you would have thought last season, the way that they played, they won a couple of trophies as well. They had a strong end to the season as well. So you would have almost thought that, right, this year they'll kick on. They'll be serious contenders. So I just don't know what exactly the issue is. I mean, with Ten Hag, I'm actually now perhaps thinking that maybe he's a type of coach that perhaps not everybody warms to. He's cold, he's calculating. Maybe that's not everybody who sort of warms to that type of coach. So I'm not sure how the coming weeks will go with Manchester United. The big game, it's a massive, massive game. Maybe they have a great performance, they win. Maybe that's the kickstart that United need.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point you make about Ten Hag. We're speculating, right? But it's clear he makes tough, bold decisions, and he's got the majority of them right. He's got 1 or 2 wrong. We spoke about the lack of flexibility to bring on McTominay during that second half against Spurs when they were getting overrun. I think there's maybe an argument that maybe the fact that he's trying to move on from McTominay and Maguire and the way in which he's trying to do it, which is fine, that's his prerogative, but that might be permeating somewhat in the squad to some extent about how he's dealing with 2 players who, for the most part, have kept their heads down and look to play well when they've had their opportunities. Obviously, Maguire's got a bit of I would say, a fractured relationship with United fans. Some still have time for him. Some don't believe he's good enough. Whatever that may be the case, I think he's conducted himself on the whole as a decent kind of pro, let's say, as you would say. So there might be something in that there is a little bit of discontent in the squad. I just think it's also the fact that when you watch them play, if you have a stable defense, Ayub, ultimately that can be the cure of all kind of issues, right? In a sense. I mean, if you've got Varane, Martinez, Shaw, and maybe Wan-Bissaka playing at the peak of their powers, all there, all available, all fit and firing, then you can perhaps that can offset to some extent what is quite an aggressive front 4 or 5. I mean, if you think about Rashford and Antony, that's quite an aggressive set of wingers who are not necessarily known for their tracking back or working hard in terms of doing the dirty side of the game. And then you've got front Bruno, who does work hard, to be fair, does but he's still renowned for his attacking flair. And then Eriksen, another year on, does he still have the legs to get about? He was clearly looked to be a squad player this year with the signing of Mason Mount. And then you've got obviously Casemiro, who's had a challenging start to the season, although obviously he got the goal at the weekend. And I think maybe now with the injuries at the back, plus Martinez, I don't think I started the season well at all. Varane came off at halftime. Not sure what the issue is there. So they had to play Dalot. It's just a question of maybe the balance is a little off with a lot of changes with the new goalkeeper, with the new left back currently, with obviously trying to ingratiate. They obviously had to opt for Martial. So there's a few changes, and maybe that lack of balance and stability and consistency has led to a few or difficult situations. Obviously, like you said, the big ones this Sunday that will tell us a lot about both teams to some extent, both with some question marks right now. But they got the win. That's 6 points from a possible 9. But yeah, definitely not the kind of performance that suggests that they are going to be challenging for the Premier League title. And that's where they want to be this season.
Sets up the weekend beautifully, I suppose. Right, this is a couple of games I want you to talk about. Arsenal, Fulham, and Sheffield United, Man City. 2 games that perhaps before the game you would have thought Arsenal will win and Man City win. Man City did win, but obviously it was very, very close. Arsenal, you would have expected them to win perhaps against Fulham, but it was 2-2 in the end. So what's your thoughts on those 2 games?
I'll cover the Arsenal one first. And I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. I think with the Arsenal situation, it's very interesting. I mean, you saw the statistic, the first team in a calendar season to concede 3 goals in the first minute in the Premier League. They obviously conceded in the first minute against Bournemouth, famously straight from the kickoff. Billing, that was within 6, maybe 7 seconds. You'll remember the week after Leeds tried the same situation and got a shot away from Christensen, I think it was. Ramsdale saved it, but they went for the same routine. That was about 14 seconds in. They then conceded in the first minute against Southampton. If you remember, Ramsdale tried to play a ball, went to Alcaraz, put it in the bottom corner. Yeah. That was in the first 30 seconds. A game which they couldn't come back and win 3-3, and probably was the death knell in their title hopes. And then on Saturday afternoon against Pereira, and I think it's funny what you mentioned introducing this topic. You said 2 teams where you'd expect them to win. I don't think Arsenal, in my opinion, have done enough to be in that category with Man City, where Man City have earned the right where you feel like Sheffield United, they'll just put them to the sword. Yes, they had to fight hard to get the win in the end, but you saw chance after chance being missed by Erling Haaland. They were dominant for the most part and deservedly got the victory. I don't think Arsenal have earned the right to be in that. Oh, it's another game. Home to Fulham, bang, done. Last season, Ayub, they kept 14 clean sheets in total, second only to Manchester United, David De Gea winning the Golden Glove, if you remember. Out of those 14 clean sheets for Arsenal, 4 came at home. 4. The other 10 came away from home, where they have a lot more control. The other team tends to come out and play. You have a little bit more control. So that tells you a little bit about Arsenal's challenges at the Emirates. And whilst when you're trying to achieve big things like Arsenal are, without a shadow of a doubt, they are operating like a big club. They're trying to achieve big title honours. With that comes a level of scrutiny that Arsenal haven't been used to. Yes, they've always been a big club, but when you're trying to fight for honours, there comes another level of scrutiny where even a point at home or is analysed. Why, what's happened, what are some of the issues? And yeah, you can point to the XG. Arsenal absolutely dominated Fulham, but for me, it matters diddly. The point is, if you're going to keep going a goal down, if you're going to concede 2 at home to Fulham, you're not going to win many games, are you? Ultimately, you've got to stamp any threat from the opposition out where they don't even feel like they can even get into your half. If you remember, under Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool had that 18-month, 24-month stretch perhaps where I genuinely felt like there were teams like struggling to create opportunities against them. If a team created one chance against them, you thought, wow, there was a chance. Did you see that? What happened? They went through, and that's what you have to be. If you're going to be a big team, you want to kind of psychologically hurt the opponent to the point where they feel like we've got no chance today. No chance whatsoever. And Arsenal at the Emirates continue to give opportunities. And I just want to kind of talk about, and I'm going to lead on to the goal if I may, Ayub, the first goal. Some of the decisions Mikel Arteta's taken going into this season have been questionable, right? That's just fair to say. He's brought on Havertz. You know my question marks about Havertz. I think you have to give him time. There's a school of thought that suggests when Jesus up front, it will make a bit of a difference because Jesus' link-up play is superb. Havertz running onto the space that Jesus vacates could be an avenue that Arsenal will try and take advantage of. But in the end, if you're a Premier League player bought for big money, you've got to slowly start to make an impression. You bought for a reason. He bought him for the position that Xhaka left, a position that Havertz hasn't played, at least not for Chelsea. He's bought him for big money. So the question mark is, how is he going to fit in? Well, 3 games in the Premier League, there are some question marks. I thought he was decent against Palace, but again, had a very shaky game against Fulham. So there was that question mark. Partey at right back, I'll come on to because that played a part for the goal. Gabriel, after 72 consecutive starts, all of a sudden not playing in the Premier League. Is that to do with some discontent on the sidelines? There are some reports which I won't get into because I can't substantiate them about whether or not there is some off the field issues. I'm not so sure. But again, that's upset the kind of the dynamic at the back. And they also then obviously bought a top class goalkeeper, and there is some thought out there that after the international break there might even be a change in goal where Raya may well replace Ramsdale. But I come on to that point about Partey at right back and Gabriel, and I'll say it once, I'll say it again. Arsenal haven't done enough consistently in the same way that we give Liverpool probably over credit. Even now, when we see some failings and some shortcomings, we give them the credit because they've been there, done it, and the manager deserves that. Jurgen Klopp deserves that. I think on the flip side, Arsenal have had one good year, but I don't think they deserve the credit where they can suddenly start to shake certain things up within the playing dynamic, because I don't think those relationships have been forged or set in stone, especially when you've got few key moving parts like a Rice, like a Havertz. Yes, you bought Timber, who's out for the season, unfortunately. And if you look at that goal, the way it develops, it's a clear sign of the partnerships or the initial pain points that you have to go through, those teething problems that you have to go through when you're trying to play a certain style. When Ben White plays that ball into Declan Rice is clearly pressured. He plays it back to, I think he was trying to play it back to White, but it goes into Saka. Now, Saka, I think, is one of the best wingers at shielding the ball. He doesn't make too many mistakes as that young lad. But what happens is if you freeze frame it the moment Saka's about to receive the ball, I'd ask anyone just to freeze frame it just as he's about to receive the ball. You'll see Partey vacating the defense and striding out into midfield. Why? Because he's taught that yes, you might be starting at right back, but you need to get into midfield when the action develops. Well, he's clearly made a mistake because the action hasn't developed yet. It's still, you'd probably play safe at that point, take a conservative position. He vacates the right back position, trots into midfield. Rice plays the ball, so he's slightly drawn to the action. And Ben White is also drawn towards Saka way too close because, again, it's muscle memory. I'm a right back by trade, Ben White. I'm used to getting close to Saka, relationships, partnerships. And Saka plays this conservative ball. I think he slightly mishit it, but 20 yards deep, which is the ball you would normally want to play when a defender's right up your backside, let's say. But he plays it into space because all of his options have been vacated by Partey coming in. So what I'm trying to get at is when you see that action develop, it's clearly because of this new system that Arteta's trying with the right back getting into midfield, let's say, in the absence of Zinchenko currently. And it led to Arsenal losing a goal. Now, it was a bit fortuitous, I would argue, the finish. But the point I'm making is this might come good come last 10, 12 games when the players have gotten used to the system and what have you. So we have to be fair to the coach. But it clearly cost him a goal that day because if you freeze frame it again, it's not the conventional shape you would expect, especially not in the first minute, where you'd be like, right, let's just get a foothold in this game. I don't think it's a coincidence that Arsenal have conceded in the first minute 3 times in a calendar year. I mean, most teams will more and more go for them because if they see a failure, they normally smell blood. So for me, that was symptomatic of the fact that those relationships are not forged, or at least Arteta's trying to create something which perhaps might be a step too early. Because there was not a lot wrong with Arsenal last season. And you might say teams have cottoned onto it, so you've always got to come out with new wrinkles. And I'll give Mikel Arteta that time because ultimately he's earned that and he sees these players day in, day out. So I've got no qualms with the manager. I'm simply saying that these are the byproducts of when you're trying to implement something new, which the players are not quite grasping, I would argue. And the last point I'll finish on, what was really peculiar about all 3 of those games that I mentioned, if you remember Bournemouth, Billing scores in the first minute. They also had a set-piece goal in that game, Senesi. Southampton scored in the first minute through Alcaraz. They also had a set-piece goal in that game with Saleta Sarr, and this game as well. where you're winning 2-1, you manage to retrieve the situation after conceding in the first minute, and they again concede from a set piece from a player we like who took his goal very well, but should have been marked. You're down to 10 men. Absolutely should be marking everyone. So I think there are massive question marks already for Arsenal, and it's a huge game. They had the opportunity to go in 9 points from 9 against a big game against Manchester United. I expect Manchester United to score, because teams do at the Emirates Stadium. And I think there's a little bit of perhaps early pressure on both head coaches, I think, even at this early stage of the season. So it'll be interesting to see.
And rightly so. I think with Arteta, don't know whether he's got carried away after what happened last season, and he starts sort of believing the hype that he is a great coach, and he's Guardiola 2.0. I think he's trying to do too much, and I don't know why. I don't know why. I think it's absolutely important. You can't. I mean, we talked about it before in the previous show, where you can't be stagnant. You've always got to be trying something different. But I think it almost feels like wholesale changes rather than just gradual changes. Almost, you allow changes to happen almost in a sense naturally. I think he's trying too much, and also, I mean, you've talked about the game, about various incidents, but the one thing I want to talk about, I mean, it's something that we talked about this morning offline, about Rice. Obviously, a friend of ours, we once talked about, is Rice worth 100 million? And he made a really good point. It's a point that I agree with. That if you're spending that sort of money, it's because you think that in key moments, defining moments, they will make the difference. Apart from being really good players, in key moments they make the difference. He was pulled off, albeit it was 90 minutes. He was pulled off, and I'm sort of thinking that you spent 100 million on a player. Now it's 2-2. Obviously, you're looking to win the game, but you take off a player that you spent 100 million on. Again, that to me is something that it doesn't sit comfortably with me. You spend 100 million on a player. That player should be the one, even if he's a defensive player. It's not somebody that you should be pulling. Not it doesn't sit comfortably with me. Again, the question then is Rice worth 100 million? Is he going to be the difference to Arsenal this season? I don't think he is. I think they've spent a lot of money on a player that perhaps is somebody who's going to be an asset. That's all he is. So that's a slightly different point. But I think the game on Sunday is massive. It's huge. And I'm sort of thinking that it's very early in the season. Maybe I suppose we're being premature, but pressure's on both managers to a certain extent. So it will be interesting. You were going to say something when I was talking about Rice. You were chomping at the bit as an Arsenal supporter.
I could not disagree with you more, honestly. I mean, I heard some of the offline chatter this morning. Rodri, this Declan Rice isn't fit enough to shine his boots and all the rest of it. Let's look at the facts.
We didn't say that. We did not say that.
Let's look at the facts. Rodri's 27, Declan Rice is 24. And there's no, absolutely without a shadow of doubt, Rodri is the premier player in his position. I will not dispute that whatsoever. I mean, but let's have a look at Declan Rice. What are you expecting? Firstly, Rodri has had some big moments and he's delivered, but we're making out as if he's Zidane 2.0 for some reason. I mean, he's had some big moments. Aston Villa springs to mind. Last day of the season, bang, scores the goal to make it 2-1 at 2-2 at the time. But then obviously the Champions League goal. He's had a few others. The Bayern Munich semi-final. Obviously this one, getting him a hard-fought victory away at Sheffield United. He's a player at the peak of his powers, but we're comparing him to Rice when, again, I'm arguing that Rodri is the premier player in his position, but Rice is 24. He's played his whole career at West Ham United, a team that generally struggles. He's now playing for Arsenal. They've won 2 out of the 3. They've drawn, obviously, the Fulham game. They dominated the game. Let's not get it twisted. I mean, the first goal, I don't think you can blame him. He's played the ball in and what have you. And against Nottingham Forest in the first game of the season, he was played in a slightly different position. And the second game against Palace, he was man of the match. And in the third game, again, Arsenal have dominated. It's more, and he takes some responsibility for the corner. I think him and Saka did get a little bit confused about who they were picking up. So yeah, absolutely, let's hold him accountable. But he's not a player who's known for his goals. So when you say at 2-2, he got taken off.
Neither is Rodri. Neither is
No,
Rodri.
well, he's starting to make a name for himself. All I'm saying is that 2-2, Mikel Arteta had Gabriel Jesus on the bench. He'd already bought on Nketiah for Trossard, so he wasn't taking off Nketiah. I think Saka and Martinelli are also attacking threats. So he'd bought on Jorginho for Odegaard. So where was this change? You tell me which change you would have made. You've got Jesus on the bench and it's 2-2. Which change are you making?
No, mine is just it's a 100 million player. I'm not gonna try and say who else should have been taken off or who should have been taken off. No, my point is
you need to give me a practical solution for that situation.
My point is that Rice is a player that he's invested 100 million. He is a player that really, on these key moments, and they're not the same, but in a sense, there are similar types of players. Rodri, again, this is what Rodri brings, because he's not somebody who's known as a goal scorer.
Ayub, how many years has Rodri been playing for Manchester City under the best manager in the world?
A number of years.
And how many years has Declan Rice been playing for Arsenal, a competent, attacking, good top club? How many games? It's been 3 games.
He's worth 100 million. They've paid 100 million.
But it's 3 games. But Rodri did not pull up any trees in the first year for Manchester City. I can pull up the stats. He did not pull up any trees in the first year. We're not being fair with the comparison. Absolutely not. If Rice is 26, 27, and he's just an average footballer, which we all know he's not. Yes, he's a £100 million player, but guess what? If Rodri went to somebody right now, he'd go for more than 100 million, because that's just the going price.
Rodri was not familiar with the English Premier League, so he came in. So first season, maybe he needs to get an understanding of the Premier League. Rice has played in the Premier League for how many years now? So he's a very experienced campaigner. He's played against all the sides that Arsenal are playing against.
You're having a go at him for being subbed in the 88th minute or something.
90th minute.
Goodness gracious! What's the world come to?
But we'll briefly talk about the City game, which was a surprise. I mean, I really expected. I mean, in terms of the stats of the game, it was one-way traffic, but it could have been a real surprise result at 1-1, 85 minutes, 86 minutes. And this is why, for me, Rodri is just exceptional. That he's not somebody that you would expect that he's always going to pop up with goals, but he seems to always, when it matters, he'll come up with a good. So excellent result from Manchester City, from the point of view that it was 1-1 at 85, 86 minutes, and maybe there could have been a real sort of surprise. But Rodri came up trumps, so that was a solid performance. But is there any other games, OS, that caught your eye? Is there any other results that maybe you want to talk about?
I'm going to run through them because there was a lot of action. It was the best game week of the season for the action. I'm going to give the goalkeepers a little bit of a shout out first, if I may, Ayub. There was an incredible. We spoke about Alisson, made an incredible save from Almiron, helping his team to an incredible win at St James's Park. But there were a couple of other big saves this season, this game week, which I thought were incredible. Jordan Pickford made a save from one of the Wolves players with a strong hand. Incredible. He's not a goalkeeper that I particularly rate very highly, but he was an incredible save. Jose Sarr made a save from Decore, which was absolutely off the charts. He was drifting backwards, falling backwards off balance into his net, somehow still managed to contort his body to help the ball over the line, and helped his team in the end ultimately get a win, putting Sean Dyche under a little bit of pressure, I would say, at Everton. Not a lot going right for that club right now. And the big one was probably West Ham winning away at Brighton, a game where Brighton would have really fancied it, home against a team that, in the end staved off relegation, but lost their best player, or I think they lost their best player. You might think Declan Rice, Jared Bowen's maybe their best player. I don't know. But no, I mean, Areola made a couple of absolutely brilliant saves. One from Ferguson at the end, which was incredible. Jared Bowen scored a goal in that game. Don't know if you've seen it, Ayub. The way he took that goal was an absolute thing of beauty.
He's a good player. He's a good player. He's always been a good player.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought his goal was superb. So that was the big result. West Ham, on the whole, deservedly winning, even though they didn't have much possession. I think only about 25, 26% possession of the ball. But they looked lively. Antonio, great drop of the shoulder, right foot, bang. He scored a couple like that now this season. The one, if you remember, against Chelsea, bang through the legs. This one again, I think he turned Webster. I think it was an incredible finish. So West Ham flying high early. I think the only other couple, and then I'll let you quickly summarize, is I thought Spurs, a big win, away from home, clean sheets. It's what you want. Clean sheets, 2-0. Maddison again, saw with a lovely assist. Maddison, for me, probably just because Spurs have had more positive results, let's say, than Chelsea. I think Maddison may get the nod for Player of the Month for August. I'm interested to see if that's the case. It'll be well earned. He's had a great start to his Spurs career, helping them to a big win. And then obviously the Villa win against Burnley. Burnley struggling right now. I think there was a little bit made of Ayub about Company starting a fairly new team, let's say, with a lot of the seasoned veterans on the squad, on the bench or outside of the squad. So Burnley having some early challenges, let's say, in the Premier League season. Villa, though, Matty Cash, that first goal, incredible endeavour to get to the far post, and even the second goal, 1-2 with Diaby. Superb football. Incredible football. So, a lot of great action. Could have had a hat-trick as well, Cash, at the end, which would have been some fantasy football haul, as he's a defender. So, no, I thought it was a great weekend of football. You're absolutely right, Ayub. It's an advert for the Premier League. And I think it bodes well for the season to come. I think this could be one of the best yet, in my opinion, or at least in recent memory.
Summarised superbly as always, Lewis. For me, there's only one thing that I want to talk about now, and it's Maddison. You touched upon Maddison. Unbelievable. He's such a gifted player. I mean, he's a player that every time that I've watched him, he's always been exceptional. I think he is world class, seriously world class. I think he is a player that could play for any team in the world, and he would improve them. He's just superb. I mean, he's a slight chap, but my goodness me, he is impactful, and it's superb. It's a pleasure to watch Maddison play, and I can't wait to see how he plays for the rest of the season, because I think he's going to be instrumental. I think this is the player that Spurs have been wanting for a number of years. He could be the difference. So absolutely right. A fantastic weekend of football, really enjoyable. I'm just looking forward to next weekend before the international break. I hope it's as exciting next weekend as it was this weekend. So that more or less brings it to an end. So as always, thank you always. And I'll ask as always to subscribe if you haven't. Smash a like, please. Share with your friends. Hit the notification bell if you haven't, because we are dropping videos much more frequently. So until the next time, stay onside.
Don't stray off, Ayub.
Don't stray off. It's one of these days.
You'll get there. You'll get
All
there.
right. Okay. See, until we will be dropping a video on Thursday. OS will actually be talking about the Fantasy Premier League. Hopefully, we'll give you some tips. Whereabouts are you, just before we go? Whereabouts are you in the Fantasy Premier League?
I think I've had a little bit of a bump, let's say, but I did leave Moussa Diaby on the bench, which is something that I'm regretting right now. But, all good. We'll keep
all right.
moving.
Excellent. So until Thursday, have a wonderful evening. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye now.